The Retirement Cafe podcast, The Hidden Depths of Older People, with Laura Page. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. It's great to have you here. I came across this week's guest through Professor Samir Gray and his work in the area of anti-ageism. Laura Page is an artist, a photographer, and a socially engaged practitioner. That means she uses art and photography as a way to help people express themselves, have their own voice, and share their views with their community. Liverpudlian Laura's focus is on society and politics, aiming to produce work that leads to positive social change. She has a particular interest in the older age group and has recently completed an important project called Hidden Depths, which she funded by winning the Rebecca Vassie Memorial Award. Hidden Depths involve Laura photographing and gathering the stories of 31 over 80-year-olds to showcase the rich lives of many older people. She wanted to challenge the ageist stereotypes and shared some of those inspirational stories with me in our conversation. I encourage you to check out the stunning photos of Laura's website, laurapage.co.uk. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Laura. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, Laura Page.
Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure to chat to you, Laura. So for those who don't know you, and because I know your work, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you get up to, what you do as a profession.
So I live in Sheffield. I'm from Liverpool, and I work as a photographer, filmmaker, artist. I mainly do stuff around people and society and politics. That's what really interests me. But a big variety really, and I do a lot of workshops with different community groups.
Oh wow.
So I kind of use art and photography as a way for people to express themselves, have their own voice, build confidence, and kind of work with people to produce art that they'll then usually exhibit to the rest of the community.
Fantastic. I know on your website you describe yourself as a socially engaged practitioner. Tell me more about that.
Yes, that is the pretentious name for the thing that I've just described. So basically it involves doing workshops with people in their own communities and kind of seeing what it is that they want to do and what they want to express, and then supporting them to do that. So you kind of co-producing work with other people.
Right.
Using it as a tool for positive social change a lot of the time.
Brilliant. Now, of course, we've got you on the Retirement Cafe podcast for a reason, because you have a special interest in the in the older age group. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's come from the fact that I've recently done a big project called Hidden Depths, which is kind of a piece that I've done photographing 31 people and gathering their stories. Everyone's pretty much over 80, and it's to kind of show the rich lives that many older people are leading, and to try and challenge some of the ageist stereotypes that we see all too often, I think, which just aren't very accurate or helpful.
Yeah.
So I'd been doing working as a socially engaged practitioner with a lot of older groups just over a few months, kind of coincidentally really, and I'd worked particularly with a lot of people with dementia, and I'd noticed, even though I've been doing it for years, I was noticing my own kinds of preconceptions when I'd walk in and meet a new group of people, say in a residential home, that might all just be staring into space and very quiet when I first met them. And it's just very easy to see this kind of two-dimensional version of people straight away. Yeah. And then, of course, as I got to know people better and started making things with them, I'd learn a lot more about their personalities and their histories and this kind of vast life that they'd lived. and really interesting personalities, and thinking about how much I got as well from spending time with people of different age groups from me, that kind of perhaps mix in different circles than me usually, how much we can learn from each other. And so that's when I put forward a proposal to do the Hidden Depths project, to kind of try and shine a different light on what it is to be older, or what it can be to be older.
Yeah, yeah.
And I saw there was a prize called the Rebecca Vassie Award, and so I put forward the proposal for that, and I won that, and that's how I ended up being able to complete it.
Fantastic. Well done for that. And how did you so how did you go about kind of selecting the people that you wanted to talk to and photograph?
Well, luckily for me, the BBC put something about it on their website, so loads of people ended up reading that and getting in touch with me. So the day after it went on, I kind of woke up and looked at my inbox and was like, oh, there was like 400 and odd people have got in touch with me.
Wow. So what was the criteria that the BBC what made people kind of, email you?
Well, they just said that I was looking for people to photograph and to interview for this project, to show people that were still living a rich life. I just kind of chose over 80 as almost a bit of an arbitrary line, because I thought, what is it to be older? And I think that's getting older and older, because 70s doesn't seem very old to me now.
No.
Anyway, so I just thought I'll choose over 80s for a line to guide people, I suppose. And yeah, just loads of people got in touch saying, tell me about themselves and the things they were doing, or a neighbour, or their parents, or family member. So I just had loads of people to go through, and it coincided with the beginning of the pandemic, actually. Just as I think a lot of us were beginning to realise how long this was going to be and how big it was going to be. So I was stuck in, and everybody else was stuck in. And I think, in a way, I thought, how am I going to do this now and photograph a group of people that are, by virtue of their age, in a vulnerable category?
Yeah.
But it also meant that everybody had a lot of time, and time to reflect and time to tell their stories. So I think I got a really good response because of that, and I had time to answer every single person as well. So I kind of built up, some more relationships with people over that time, and try and work out who it was that was going to choose to photograph. And there was so many people, it was really hard to get it down.
Yeah.
But by the time I was 31, I was exhausted. So that's why I left it there. I could have done hundreds otherwise.
So these are people over 80 all around the UK.
Yeah, around the UK, yeah.
And tell me a couple of stories of the ones that really grabbed you.
Well, yeah, so many good ones. One of my favourites was probably Moira, who is a dancer.
Oh, yeah.
She's never been like a professional dancer or anything. She just, I think she got into Zumba because she found it on her granddaughter's laptop. She's in her 90s now, and she decided she wanted to dance at the opening of the Olympic ceremony.
Wow.
But for health and safety reasons, they weren't keen because of her age.
Right.
So she said she would just paint the backdrops. Anyway, she managed to get away on stage in the end and dance. And then she decided to go in her 90s to Brazil for the opening of the ceremony there as well. So she ended up just going and staying in a youth hostel with loads of 20-odd-year-olds in Rio de Janeiro, buying all the Brazilian dance outfit and dancing at that. And she faked her birth certificate to try and get into the one in London. And I kind of love her, just her rebellious spirit and a kind of funny way of looking at everything. She just goes for it.
Brilliant.
She was nervous, but she just did it anyway. She just thought, what the hell.
Fantastic. And who else?
Another favourite would have to be a lady from Sheffield who she fostered 260 odd people under the age of 5.
Wow.
She was a single mum herself, and the dad had left, and she'd been working really long shifts, 12-hour shifts, cleaning the trains, and she decided to become a foster parent.
Yeah.
And sometimes she'd have, she didn't want to separate siblings, so she'd have 5 under 5s at home. She had no hot running water, so she used to wash them all the cleaners first, and then put them on the bath, and then drag the bath to the back door so she could scrub the backyards with the water. And I just think she was one of the people that I might not have known about, these kinds of people that are harder to know about, that are very quietly amazing,
Yeah.
kind of seeming to live a very ordinary life, but actually doing something really amazing for a lot of people.
Yeah. 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 Now, Laura, I wouldn't even want to guess how old you are, but I think you're significantly younger than me. Um, how is your own kind of outlook, I suppose, changed? Maybe as it may have changed. I don't know over the kind of course of this, taking all these photographs of these amazing people.
It has changed actually, because although I started the project in the first place because I had this inkling of people not being portrayed as they are,
Yeah.
and also the dangers of kind of putting people in a box and saying you're too old to do this. I'm 45 actually, and I've been told already, you're too old to have your hair long, you're too old to play football, things that I do. And I thought, God, that's now. What's it going to be like later? Or you always hear people saying you're too old to wear that. Or I meet people and say, oh, they like, oh, I love art. I'm like, why don't you do it? Like, oh, I'm too old. And it's just that danger of us all putting ourselves into these boxes. But actually, I've really had my eyes open, so I didn't expect to be so inspired by all the people that I've been in contact with. And I guess the main way it's affected me is that I feel loads more happy about my own getting older now. I
Yeah.
feel that there's still a lot ahead. And then I guess the idea of being old is quite exciting
Yeah.
because of the things that they're doing. A lot of people were really having a kind of second, third, fourth light stage of life only in their 80s and 90s, because they'd really a lot of them were retired late, because I guess they're those type of people that are very active. So but people had no work, had no work commitments, no family commitments. They stopped really caring what other people think. So it was like a brand new lease of life in their 80s. So that's quite exciting, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots to look forward to, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's a campaign I think called Stop Ageism that you're familiar with and probably can explain better than I can. But they've used I think some of your hidden depths photos.
Yeah, the Stop Ageism campaign got in touch when they saw some of the pictures and asked if they could use some of them for their campaign.
Right.
Um, it's from a housing group that builds housing for older people, that's maybe like more city centre based.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for people that kind of want to live still a more active, maybe loud kind of older life. So it's not your typical kind of retirement home out in the sticks where nobody ever leaves. It's so you can still kind of live that life in the city. Quite a few different organisations got in touch and used some of the stories to kind of promote what they do. So
Mm.
that's a really nice thing to come out of it. And I
Yeah.
made a few films, documentary films of people that I photographed as well. Sheffield Hallam University asked me to do some films around that.
Brilliant.
So the project's really grown. And I
And
guess it's a thing that everyone's interested in, because everyone, well, most people, most of us, if we're lucky, are going to get old. So it's something that affects everyone. Everyone's got older people in their lives potentially. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of interest in it.
absolutely. And I've obviously I've seen I've seen on your website and on your YouTube channel etc. The photographs, the beautiful photographs that you've taken of these people, and we'll put those links in our show notes so people can go and view them themselves who are watching and listening. But did you record kind of interviews with these people as well, or was it just photographs?
No, well, when I originally put forward the proposal, I was going to try and spend a day with each person at least and do very natural, candid pictures. But then, as I said, it ended up being over the time of COVID or starting up. So I realised I wasn't going to be able to do that for a long time.
Right.
So I changed it just to try and produce one powerful portrait of each person, because I knew that I could do that from more of a distance and
Yeah.
more quickly.
Yeah.
But what I would tend to do was chat to people either online or on the phone beforehand a few times to get to know them. And then we would usually sit out in the garden if possible for an hour or two first, get to know each other a bit. And I would kind of interview people then, scribble
Great.
down notes,
Yeah.
and then take the photos once I got to know them, because I wanted the pictures to be almost more of a co-production. So they're guiding me into who they are rather than going in with preconceived ideas of who they are.
Yeah.
So it really helped to have a good chat with them first, so that the picture accurately, hopefully, reflected who they actually are and who they feel they are. And then I'd kind of get home and write it up.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, just from the pictures I've seen, and they really are inspiring, and just the individual stories. I feel there is a kind of a missing piece maybe between generations of actually understanding that this older generation is can be really inspiring, as you've been inspired. If you're now looking towards your later life with vigor, and kind of not with a apathy, I suppose, that possibly we could all suffer from. Maybe there's a way of making sure this reaches a much bigger audience. What would you like to see happen with all your pictures?
Well, hopefully they're going to be exhibited at a few more places across the UK, and I hope they are, because I do think the UK is one of the most age segregated countries in the world.
Right.
I think you notice that a lot I used to live in Spain, for example, and people would go out together across generations for a meal. It'd be a really normal thing. So there'd be the 2-year-old kids and the grandparents and everybody in between. And that's much more common. And it does happen here, but not as much.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real shame. I mean, people tend to move away, like to go to university. I thought, particularly the middle classes in the UK, people tend to move away to go to university, and they might not go back to their parents.
Mm.
You get obviously communities here where families stick together more, but I just think we lose out so much from that, because you kind of only mix in potentially with people in your own bubble who have quite similar life experience. And one of the things I love about my job is I meet people from all different ages and backgrounds, and I just think we all get a lot from that. And I ran a few workshops alongside the exhibition where I invited younger people from a local college to come, and we did like some intergenerational workshops. So there was other older people there as well, and I just got everyone to mix up and take pictures of each other and talk about how they felt they were perceived compared to how they feel they actually are, and they all had to chat about that, and it was just really nice to see. It worked better than I'd hoped. Everyone had loads to say. Everyone was really good at helping each other with the photographs, and that was like a really good example of why it's a bad idea to be that segregated, I think, because it's a stereotype in a bit, but say a lot of the younger people were better with the technology, and then a lot of the older people were better at kind of being more confident, thinking about moving around. So together they worked really well with their different strengths that they had through being at different stages in their lives, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we all need to do more.
Absolutely. So, Laura, obviously the people that you photographed, I mean, just an amazing variety of past lives that they've had, and of course the life they're living now. Which are the ones that really kind of intrigued you and inspired you?
I think it was the people that really had to overcome a lot of difficulty. So I think it's easier if we've lived quite privileged lives to hope that we can kind of continue those rich lives into the future if we're healthy and everything. But a lot of the people had kind of tragedies happen to them, severe disabilities, that type of thing.
Wow.
And yet still managed to overcome them. In fact, maybe use them to kind of change their life and move on to another stage, and just really carry on living their lives and as best as they can. So there was an artist who lost his wife when his babies were still in nappies, and he was just still doing amazing things. He just had to bring them up on his own and carry on working as an artist. There was lots of people who's kind of lost children and had overcome that and kind of really propelled themselves into a new life as a way to continue, I suppose.
Mm.
And then there was like a guy who is a surfer who invented the Google wetsuit, and he was losing his eyesight. So he used to always take his surfboard and all his other boards for his activities that he did on the roof of his car, but he wasn't able to drive anymore because he was losing his sight. So he just built a big cart for the back of his bike and then carries everything on there. And then he made this cart so he could transform it into a kind of like place to run a party from and have a bar on the beach. So it's just always, it was, I think a thing, lots of the people had things in common. And one of them was the ability to kind of take something difficult and just work around it and change how you live your life so that you're still doing something that you love.
Yeah.
Another thing they had in common was a positive outlook on life and still wanted to learn things, still wanted to teach and learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still kind of had an interest in life.
Fantastic. Well, that's again inspirational for all of us to observe other people's lives like that, who've taken on challenges and managed to overcome them, and still later on into their lives. So I'm going to spend some time going through each one of those photographs and trying to see the person behind the photograph. So thanks for that. So Laura, where can people find out more about you and maybe get to see your work?
Well, I will keep people posted about where they're going to go next because it's not confirmed yet. So the exhibition should be somewhere else in the UK soon. And I'll put that on Instagram, which is Laura_page_photography. I have to read this because I can't remember.
No problem.
Or what is it again? Or my Facebook, which is at Laura Page Photography, or on my website, which is laurapage.co.uk.
Wonderful.
Updates on there.
Great. Well, I mean, I've had a look only on the YouTube and your websites, etc., and they are absolutely fabulous, beautiful photographs, and really, yes, I mean, the stories behind them are really inspirational, and I think for all of us, if we can take a view, like you were saying, of thinking the next 20, 30 years ahead of you, or maybe it's only 10 years ahead of you, and thinking, I'm really going to embrace it and look what other people have done, and we can all take a lot of courage and inspiration from that. So thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing, and of course for joining me this morning.
Thanks a lot for having me. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thanks, Laura. A big thank you to Laura for sharing her stories and her wonderful work with me today. To find the show notes with links to Laura's website and her projects, head over to our website, theretirementcafe.co.uk. As ever, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps more people like you find us. And for more interviews and retirement planning videos, you might want to check out my YouTube channel. Just search for Justin King, MFP. Or click the link in the show notes. If you have an idea for a guest or topic you'd like to hear from on the Retirement Cafe podcast, please get in touch at hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk, or you can find me on Twitter at Justin King CFP. I hope to hear from you. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.